Coming to tonight's session on ethical product design, why responsible intent matters more than ever. Let me give you an introduction to our distinguished and eminent speaker of tonight, Andy Vitale. Andy is the VP of Product Design and Content at QuickenLoans, the largest mortgage lender in the US, where he instills the importance of design and a human-centered approach to transform the mortgage lending experience. Andy has solved problems for organizations ranging from startups to Fortune-ranked companies. He is a relentless user experience evangelist with a passion for cognitive thinking and making technology more human. Andy is driven by a passion to inspire and empower teams to do their best work. Aside from his primary role at QuickenLoans, Andy is an adjunct professor for Kent State University, User Experience Design Graduate Program, speaks at industry conferences and events, serves on the advisory board for multiple professional organizations and educational institutions, and is also the co-author of the upcoming book, Designing for Safety, which is going to be launched in 2021. A very warm welcome to you, Andy. We are delighted to have you here with us tonight. Handing the session over to you.
Thanks so much. Really happy to be here. I'm trying to start my video. It's not letting me launch my video, but in the meantime, and it won't let me share my screen yet. So
I'm going to go up there. So.
Oh, it looks like it's going to go. All right. I'm gonna share my screen and start my video. Oh, it's still giving me a video issue, but hey everyone, while I'm working on this slight piece of technology, if you could just drop in the chat and let me know. Hold please, while I'm trying to work on this sharing process. All right, so if you can just drop in the chat and let me know kind of what your background is. Is it in design? Is it in product? Is it in engineering? That would be super helpful for me to know. All right, it looks like we're starting to share now. Let me see if my video will come on. There I am. Hey everyone, happy to be here. About to try one more screen sharing thing right now. New share, advanced portion of screen. And we should be good to go. All right. So, hey, as I was saying, super happy to be here. Thank you for spending your time with me today. I'm Andy. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. It's great to be with you.
Great to have you here, Andy.
Thanks. I appreciate that. All right. So I'm going to jump right in and talk to you a little bit about me. So what you're looking at is a picture of Bat Boy. One of my first, Bat Boy was a fictitious character for this company called the Weekly World News. One of my first jobs that I worked at was for the tabloids, right? So National Enquirer, Sun, Star, the Globe, basically every magazine that in the US you see in the supermarkets. And you know, the reason that I'm telling this story is while I was there, we were subject to the first anthrax attack in the United States. This was back in 2001. And I remember getting a call from my dad that my company was on the news. They were in the health department. I mean, they were on the news and that we were told to come down to the health department. They said they had found anthrax in our building and didn't give us a lot of detail. I went down to the health department. They had us sign a bunch of papers and they said, hey, you know, like we're going to take a swab. We're going to check with you. We're going to see if you're okay. And if you're okay, we'll treat you. And then they sat us down in this hotel ballroom with the FBI, the CDC, and the Florida Department of Health. And they told us, like, we honestly don't know what's going to happen to you. We have only seen this type of anthrax outbreak in the 1960s. And we know the spores stay dormant for up to 58 days. So we're going to give you 60 days of medication and monitor it. And I remember being told that my test was fine. And then you hear the special alert tone on the news. You see that another coworker was hospitalized, and you're like, wow, like they really don't know what's happening. And then you get a phone call and it says that the test was inconclusive. So it's like, it was so scary. And going through that with some coworkers, and it's not the same, but it's similar to kind of what we're going through today with a lot of the uncertainty. And at that point in my career, that point in my life, I decided that whenever I get a chance, because I was new in design at the time, so it wasn't going to be immediately, but whenever I got the chance to leverage design for good, to be able to help with communication, to be able to remove uncertainty from people, that I would take a chance and go for it. And since then, I've been primarily focused on creating ethical designs for the past 7 to 10 years. I started doing some of that at 3M, which isn't just scotch tape and post-it notes. In healthcare, 3M creates physical and digital solutions for patients, payers, and providers. Everything from oral care to infection prevention to food safety to enterprise software. I also had the chance to join my local AIGA and become the director of Design Impact, where design for good and sustainable design committees fell under me. And now I'm at QuickenLoans. And before that, I actually stayed in finance working at SunTrust and what became Truist, which is the sixth largest bank in the US. And for me in this space, it's really about helping people and businesses have relationships with their finances and get offers that make them feel comfortable, and helping them grow in financial confidence and getting them the best opportunity that they have, and educating them on their situation. Because finances are scary, loans are scary. So how do we help people be as prepared as possible and provide them the best experience? Because what they want to do is get the best offer that they can, come in and manage their loan the best way possible. And we don't want to make it difficult or confusing for them. And the thing that we have to realize is design is a superpower to me. No matter where you are in your career, being a designer is a privilege, and you're in this position to really make a difference. When you have that opportunity to do so, that impact is inspiring. And it's about having positive impact. It's leaving things better than we found them. We know designers and people who make products should recognize that there's always a path to improve the current state, and to do so through meaningful context really showcases the power of design. Design also has an exponential impact. By choosing to be a designer, you're choosing to impact those people who come in contact with your work. You can either hurt them or help them with your actions. Whatever we work on, whatever we create, the tools, the solutions, the products that has that exponential impact, whether it's functional, emotional, or in my current case, financial. And for us, the stakes have never been higher. We're not just designing pixels and screens, but we're designing applications, ecosystems, organizations. We're solving complex things and wicked problems that affect people's health, their relationships, their mental state. And as designers, we have the privilege and the burden of wielding a lot more power than we've ever had before. When we do our jobs well, we make people's lives better. When we don't, it can have consequential impact also. So the truth is, people want to feel safe and secure. Safety is a basic human right. But there's a lot of things going on that really don't allow people to feel safe. It seems that we're constantly hearing of new breaches across all industries, and that's not good. It's not just breaches, some of it are improper practices. And not all of these are the fault of the company, but customers don't always understand that. We've all made mistakes and learned from them. But at the end of the day, when whatever causes that data breach, that privacy concern, like the company is the one that bears responsibility for that. And as we design products and create products, we need to make sure that we're aware of these things. I'm not saying that some of these things could have been avoided by design, but what I am saying is that people deserve to feel safe, and product design can play a part in that. So we've got a poll going. They're going to post a link to the poll in the chat. And my first question really is, have you ever felt unsafe when interacting with a digital product? And we're going to take like a few seconds and wait for some results to come in. Most people have felt unsafe. Yeah, that's wow. Over 75, it's about 75% of the people have felt unsafe.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think that's the way people would feel too, especially with the way things are right now.
Exactly. So, in thinking about that, what do we consider safety when it comes to products? And, to me, products that are considered safe are designed to minimize emotional, uh, economic, physical, and psychological harm to any human being and to society. Sometimes we leverage technology for the wrong reasons.
China has added a special effect to a glass-bottomed walkway. Using sensors and other tricks, the glass floor appears to shatter as tourists walk on the bridge, which hangs close to 3,900 feet above sea level along a mountain cliff. But for those who don't know it's a trick, it could be a terrifying experience. Footage posted by People's Daily Online shows one man who appears to be a tour guide stumbling over and falling to his knees in fear as the glass panel cracks under his feet. The 10-second long video has gone viral on social media, with some calling the feature funny, while others say it's just cruel. Sensors have been installed to detect any human movement, so the cracks follow your steps as you walk. The local government has issued an apology for the scare, but doesn't plan to replace the panels with regular ones because they want visitors to come and experience them. For United News International in Tokyo, I'm Rumi Fukushima.
Imagine not knowing this and walking along this walkway. Why would a product designer, someone who creates products, responsible for products, think that this was a good idea to create something that would be used for this reason? People seem to have quickly figured out that it wasn't real. But imagine that fear walking across that glass walkway and hearing and seeing it crack right in front of you. Like that's crazy. Let's take that a step further. On Saturday morning, January 13th, 2018, a ballistic missile alert was issued by the Emergency Alert System in Hawaii. This went across television, radio, and cell phones across the entire state. And the alert stated basically that there was an incoming ballistic missile threat to Hawaii, advised residents to seek shelter, and then concluded that this is not a drill. So essentially, imagine getting this alert and hearing that there's a missile headed for you, and that's all you know. The uncertainty of that coming for you when you get it on your phone is beyond scary, right? 38 minutes later, state officials blamed a miscommunication during a drill at the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency for the first message. The people weren't aware that this was an error for over a half hour. Can you even imagine that? And it turns out that this was a bit of a design problem. So at the start of each shift, operators open up their alert software and they retrieve this list of templates, and they pick one from this long list. And this time, the one that they picked was called PACOM CDW state only. But the template that they meant to click was the one that says drill first. The only thing different was the word drill in the file name. Other than that, these files are nearly identical. This is definitely a design problem in file naming conventions. And in this case, a design error caused widespread fear and panic. Think about that. I go to the grocery store and I look at something on the shelf and I go to grab it. I put it in my cart. Then I get home and I realize I picked the wrong thing accidentally, just by not fully paying attention. It's that easy to make a mistake. And in this case, that mistake just caused immense fear and panic. And it could have been handled differently. There could have been design things put in place to prevent this alert from happening. You know, In the US, only 50% of Americans feel that technology companies have a positive impact on the US. 4 years ago, that was a very different case, but the share of Americans who hold this view have tumbled 21 percentage points since then. And I wonder why. Even the brands we trust the most make mistakes. So this is the case of Apple with their sexist credit card. So what you'll see here is that people would realize that they would apply for the Apple card and they'd get a certain credit limit, and then their wife would apply for the credit card and get a lower credit limit, to the point where people called out this happening all over social media. And Steve Wozniak, one of the founders of Apple, had the same thing happen to him. He got 10 times the credit limit that his wife had without a separate bank account, without separate credit card accounts, without any separate assets. This was an algorithmic failure that sometimes these happen through unconscious bias. It depends on the people that are creating those algorithms, but we have to be aware of algorithmic bias and the flare-ups that can happen. Things like this are not acceptable. And, why do things like this happen? Well, there were technologies that were not so well understood. And us as product professionals, we had to figure out what we could do at the same time of figuring out what we have to do. You can definitely argue the need for speed, but sometimes when you go too fast, it potentially blurs the purpose. We as product professionals need to slow down and measure what our work is doing out there in the world and the impact that it has on the people whose lives we're affecting. Looking at this list of technologies that we've all kind of jumped in and started to solve for before realizing the potential consequences of their technology, did I miss any? I can think of just one, flying cars, but we're not there yet. Let me ask you one more poll question. Have you ever designed or created something using a technology or tool that you didn't fully understand the capabilities of? And we'll give that a couple of seconds to pop up and give you some time to answer. And if for some reason you're not getting the poll, you feel free to just drop an answer. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I think we have a yes. Wow, expected.
This is slightly scary. Yeah, we're well over the majority have jumped in and just started building things, which, hey, you know what? When you're just experimenting, I think that's fair. We jump in and we learn that way. But when you're releasing something without knowing the consequences of the capabilities, I think that's a different story. So again, like, I'm not here to shame anyone. If you're building these things in the sake of like exploration and learning, that's great. When you're releasing these products into the world without knowing the true like capabilities, then I think it's something we need to worry about and address. So, as we think through some of these things, one of the things I want to talk about is like, sometimes you just can't believe the things that we see are real, right? In today's world of artificial intelligence and natural language processing engines, or what we call computational design, it's called design for a reason. So at some point, a person designed the algorithm that caused Facebook to alert someone of their most loved photo from 2016, which happened to be a photo of their mother's grave. And Facebook added hearts and animation that literally made a cartoon character dance on their mother's grave. That's, to me, that's crazy. Technology by itself has no conscious or context. It doesn't have a soul. Technology is actually an enabler, and design helps apply technology in a meaningful way. And Alan Cooper says that the individuals who create some of the most oppressive digital systems are mostly good people. And this is true. They're doing good work for what we would consider a good reason, yet what they create can turn against us without anyone wanting that to happen. Spotify's design team talks about there being 3 types of harm to the people that we design for. There's physical harm, which you see in products. It's inactivity, sleep deprivation, an addictive UI, these infinite scroll feeds, doom scrolling, auto-cued video, even parallaxing on sites can affect people who have vertigo. Then there's, accidents that can happen due to distraction from being on the device, especially when people are driving. And there's emotional harm when there's a betrayal of your trust or privacy, when people are exploited, exposed, or discriminated against using personal information that they thought was private. There's also negative self-image, anxiety, and depression, especially amongst young people whose minds, bodies, and identities are still in development, and they tend to crave this social acceptance. And of course, there's societal harm, there's political polarization, there's algorithms that are flattening the landscape of journalism, and this drives news agencies to compete through sensationalism and really helps contribute to a divided society. And then there's exclusion. It's failing to develop features that are sensitive of the experiences of underrepresented users or consider those who may have mental or physical disabilities. Harry Brignall coined a term dark patterns, and it was meant to describe ways that we have tricked customers into conversion. I believe as an industry, we can do better with a more inclusive term. So I'm going with deceptive patterns here. We've already seen ways that we've caused damage to people through our products, but there are more subtle ways that we trick people through our products. Sometimes we design screens and interactions to achieve a specific result. Now, it was just fall. And for me, I love pumpkin spice. So I wanted to buy some pumpkin spice beard oil. So I went to this website and as soon as I got there, I saw, hey, this is on sale at $7.99. They sold 6 in the last 24 hours. They've got, out of the 100 that they have, 75 of them are sold and 10 people are viewing this product. And the deal ends in 12 hours. So I was like, oh, let me go run and grab my credit card and order this beard oil. And when I did that and I was typing, you know how the touch bar kind of does its own thing when your fingers get close to it if you're a Mac user? Well, for me, it somehow refreshed the page. When I refreshed the page, all of the numbers changed. And that's when I realized this wasn't an accurate count. This false sense of urgency because they may run out or the offer will expire probably helps them sell a few. Since it was pumpkin spice season, I went ahead and also bought pumpkin spice deodorant. I bought this deodorant from a company that makes natural deodorant called Native. And as soon as I bought the deodorant from them, I got hit with like, since you love pumpkin spice, you might love our vanilla chai beard deodorant, or you might love our other products. It got to the point where I was getting 3 or 4 emails a day from this company. So I went to unsubscribe. When I went to unsubscribe, I got this screen and it's telling me like, if I unsubscribe, I'm going to make their office dog Muppet really sad if I choose to do this. I love dogs. I have 2 dogs. The last thing I want to do is make Muppet sad. So I debated on this for a couple of seconds. And while I did that, another email came in from them. And I was like, all right, I'm going to have to do this. The company seems ethical, but somehow someone thought it would be a good idea to guilt people into not unsubscribing. And we often think, where do they get a pattern like this? Like, what would make somebody want to create this? And the truth is, Facebook has done it. When people went to unsubscribe at some point, they would show you your friends and say, Chris will miss you. Bridget will miss you. Fernando will miss you. Johnny's kids who you've never met, they're going to miss you if you cancel your account. Facebook has since removed this feature due to public shaming. But think about it. How many times do we hear someone say, well, Facebook did it and they have 1 billion users, so it's probably a best practice. It's a pattern we should adopt. Just because a company does something doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. So let's talk about ethics for a second. We hear this word thrown around a lot. So we're going to look at the dictionary definition. Ethics is the discipline of dealing with what is good or bad and with a moral duty or obligation. And it's about having you or your team's own set of personal design principles, values, and philosophy. The question is, when we apply it to design and we guide how designers work with clients and colleagues and the end users of our products and how we conduct the process, do we still assess the ethical significance or moral worth of the products? The question I ask is, do you have a moral line in the sand when you design products? Because as designers, as product designers, as people who make products, we need to understand the potential consequences of our actions. I bring up Facebook a lot because they do a lot of not smart things. In 2014, they ran an experiment of over 600,000 people who used their service and filled their news feed with nothing but negative news to see how it had an effect on their mental health. They didn't ask them for their consent. They didn't give them an option to opt out, not even for those who had mental health issues. And a lot of times this comes down to, is it for the good of my company or is it for the greater good? It's not just about the screens that we design. It's about the business models that are underneath them. It's not even just about the business models. It's about the technical and economic structures that enable them. But really, it's about people. It's about doing right by people. It shouldn't have to be a choice to align company goals with making the world a better place or doing right by the people who use our products. Sometimes it is. A common situation, a common hypothetical is around autonomous vehicles. Thinking if there's about to be an accident involving a pedestrian, potentially two vehicles, how will technology decide what person would potentially be worth saving? How will that be determined? Is it by insurance type, by age, by car manufacturer, by net worth? How do you handle this situation? This is thankfully something I haven't had the opportunity to have to solve for or think about, but I can only imagine the stress and the amount of thinking that goes into it when you literally have to choose a specific outcome and program that to happen. As designers, we need to design responsibly. Every person on this earth should strive to leave this planet or any other in better shape than we found it. One way we do that is through sustainable design. And, the term design here is really used to refer to practices that are applied to how we make products, services, as well as business and innovation strategy. And sustainability is thought about as what can be continued into the future. What's the impact of our work on the world's environment, resources, and climate? I'm going to tell you a quick story about play pumps. Play pumps provided water for African villages, and it sounded like a marketing dream. Celebrities, presidents, even Jay-Z invested in this. Basically, children play on a merry-go-round, and as they do, water is pumped from the ground for storage in an elevated tank. Forgetting about child labor and safety. Understand why this doesn't work. The recommended minimum daily water requirement is 15 liters per person, which based on the pump's capabilities would require children to be playing nonstop for 27 hours in a day. The pumps were also expensive. They were $14,000 each and really hard to maintain. So it turned out that for the cost of one play pump, you could provide 4 conventional wells with hand pumps that are far less expensive and more sustainable ways of providing water. So I'm going to jump, just for the sake of time, past the UN Sustainable Framework and go into universal design. And universal design is this framework for the design of living and working spaces and products that benefit the widest possible range of people in the widest range of situations without any specialized or separate design. The best example for this are sidewalks with curb cuts. These make it easier for people in wheelchairs, people with walkers, people walking with a stroller or a shopping cart, or really anyone, because it reduces the likelihood of tripping. Another example are doors that automatically open when a person moves next to them. When we talk about accessibility, according to the World Bank, approximately 1 billion people worldwide live with a disability. This makes them the world's largest minority. Here in the US, 1 in 5 people, 20% of the population, have a disability, whether temporary or permanent. Lots of companies have decided to focus on accessibility because pending lawsuits, right? And that shouldn't be the reason why. Designing from an accessibility first standpoint has the potential to benefit not just people with disabilities, but a larger group of people, because accessible design typically delivers a better user experience. We hear about these lawsuits, Target, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo. These are all, well documented. But think about this. Why we want to design products for everyone is that they're better. And many products that we use every day were originally designed for people with disabilities. SMS texting was originally developed for the deaf to communicate without a phone. The telephone itself was created out of Alexander Graham Bell's desire to create hearing devices because both his wife and his mother were deaf. Audiobooks, another, we're used to that. They originally were created for people who had visual impairment, but we listen to audiobooks all the time. Voice command technology has become extremely helpful for people with visual impairments. Fidget spinners were originally designed to help children who had autism, and even the Snuggie was invented for disabled people who use wheelchairs. Another term we hear often is inclusive design. And, it's not entirely new, but it's kind of new in internet years. The term has actually been around since 2005. And this is really the design of products that are accessible to or usable by as many people as possible. Designers and companies are making inclusive design a focus. So let me share this video with you. What you're going to see, because the noise will drown me out, is it's a soap dispenser. And someone who has light colored skin can put their hand under and the soap will dispense. When someone with darker colored skin puts their hand under the soap dispenser, it doesn't recognize it and doesn't dispense soap. So like anything else that we create, people find a workaround. And what they did was realize they have to put a paper towel on their hand for the soap dispenser to identify them and see the soap. I'm not kidding. Like, watch this.
Nice. Okay, Noel, you try it. Come to your hand. Two black or two black? Yeah. What can I do? Come against that straight. What I have to do to get what you have to do, so reassurance thing is, I have to use that piece of white. It's a napkin, surely. Napkin again. What's it called in the hand? Man, black man ain't fight, black man.
What this tells me, or should tell all of us, is I didn't know, I didn't mean to, isn't good enough. It's 2021. If you don't understand the people who could potentially use your product and test with them, then you really don't deserve the right to be creating products for anyone. As designers and as humans, it's our obligation to respect everyone that we share this planet with, and their time, their intentions, their privacy, and their intelligence. Victor Papanek tells us that you're responsible for what you put into the world, and you're responsible for the effects that those things have upon the world. What's the worst that can happen? Well, I'm going to tell you the story of James Liang. James was an engineer who worked for Volkswagen for over 20 years. He was a company man. In 2017, James was sentenced to 40 months in prison for designing software that helped cheat emissions tests. What this means is that if you don't do the right thing as a designer, as someone who creates products, you can be held liable, and you should face the consequences of your actions. So, as designers, as product professionals, we need to ask ourselves and our partners to create responsible guidelines for our products. In a typical design process, we talk about what problem are we trying to solve, who are we solving it for, and we really understand the context and how it will be actually used as opposed to how it was intended to be used. We have to ask ourselves, does it work for everyone? And if not, why? Who can access the design? Think about the people who use it. More importantly, who can't? And then think about the problem that we're trying to solve. Literally think about the worst case that can happen and how you can prevent it. And then think about the solutions that we're exploring. Think about what if it's used by different people than we intended, or the wrong people got their hands on it and had bad intentions. That's, what if it's used in a different context or for another purpose? So what can we do? How can we think about things to ensure that we're helping to improve things rather than making them worse or flat out destroying them? Well, we can prioritize usability. We can understand how people intend to use these products and ensure that they meet their needs. We have an obligation as designers to create products that are intuitive, safe, and free from harm, especially like you can't completely eliminate harm, but you can reduce it as much as you can. And we can try. Designers and people who create products need to accommodate users with a wide range of diverse abilities. We also have to think about privacy, security, and safety concerns because they're not the same for everyone. Think about, I'm okay with using smart devices, smart home devices, Alexa, Siri, Google Home. My parents would be freaked out. They don't use it. Be transparent, be well-intentioned, put the well-being of others before anything else. Being able to help people is a great opportunity. When you actually help them, that's a reward. And throughout the design process, we make assumptions for decisions we make. Remember that these are just assumptions and they have limitations, and understand where the potential risks lie and test those assumptions. Data in itself, it's kind of meaningless, right? I could give you pieces of data, 36, 44%. Without context, that doesn't mean anything. So let's not be data driven. Let's be data informed so that we can make better decisions based on quantitative and qualitative data to improve the human experience. Let's seek to minimize accidental actions and errors and help embrace those who make mistakes. Let them feel appreciated. Let them feel welcomed. Let them feel like it wasn't their fault. Help them learn from their mistakes and help them avoid repeating them, and let us learn from their mistakes as well. Bring people to the center of the process. Work with them to understand them and both their articulated and unarticulated needs. Be empathetic to their situation and develop a relationship with them so you can continue to help them. Embrace diversity. Be welcoming and encouraging of people who come from diverse backgrounds and cultures. Make space at the table for marginalized voices to be heard. We know that diversity leads to better outcomes, better solutions, and better products. Diversity leads to better design for everyone because it takes different people's experiences and perspectives and adds them to the solution. This is just a quick list of what we just went over. If anyone wanted to grab a screenshot, I'll give it a couple of seconds. This is also, available later on too. Kim Goodwin says, worry less about design and more about human-centered decisions. There's one last poll question, and it's, have you ever designed or created something with only profit in mind and didn't think about how it would affect or impact the people who use it? I'm feeling better about this. I feel like as an industry, we've come a long way, and we really have taken that human-centered approach, and it shows in these poll results.
Yeah, that's a good feeling.
Yep. So remember those data breaches that I mentioned earlier that may not be related to design? Well, it turns out that some of them very well could have been. And I'll leave you with this last quote from Mike Montero, who, if you haven't read his book, Ruined by Design, I definitely recommend it. Everyone remembers the monster, but they call him by his maker's name. Don't be the designer, the product, the company whose name is associated with an unsustainable, inaccessible, unethical, irresponsible, or unsafe product. Thanks. And now we'll take some questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Wow, I must say, that is a very empathetic product designer with us here. Andy, we never mentioned that about you when we started. And that was a lot of stark facts, I must say. And wow, that was a scary story that you've been through when you were young. And that was really scary. And it's not any different from what we're all going through right now.
Right.
But what's interesting is also that we take away something from every experience that is good and bad. And you did take away wanting to humanize design and the empathy that you've got along with it. That's wonderful. It's really nice to hear that. And I especially like the slide where you say said design is a superwoman. I mean a superpower, and I love the super girl on it.
Yeah, it's funny because we have to focus even as designers in the way we represent our industry and realize that there are people that are very different than we are that are helping us create these designs and are driving the creation of these products. And we need to be aware of that as we leverage design to tell stories and improve the industry and give back and educate people. We need to make sure that we are being inclusive of everyone that we work with and raising that awareness for people that maybe think that design or product or technology is a male dominated field. And it is, and we have to work to change that.
Perfect. Great. Your talk is in sync with what people everywhere are feeling today, I guess, the way it is in the world right now. So I think we need to take some questions here. That was an amazing session. We already have some questions lined up.
Perfect.
Okay. Can you see that, or shall I read that out for you?
I don't see it.
Okay. This question from Rohit Nagpal. You showed some data that 50% of Americans don't trust technology or technology companies. What can new tech companies do to increase the confidence? How can new tech companies show they are ethical?
That's a great question. I think it's all about transparency and authenticity. I think if people understand what data is being used and how it's being used and just really spending time to understand how people work with products. Apple just recently created, at least they did here in the US Apple Store, they created this kind of like nutritional label for privacy. So you can see, like, one of the biggest examples I saw floating on social media are, it shows like Facebook Messenger, and it tells you all of the pieces of data that they keep and they leverage, and they just kind of are aware that exists. And then you look at Apple for like their messaging platform, and you see all of the different pieces of data that they store and they keep and they're able to capture. And then it shows like a company like Signal, who doesn't take any data or doesn't leverage any personal data. So I think as companies want to increase the trust, I think they need to really spend the time on being transparent through their process, and that will help any product, really.
All right. And another question from Rohit Nagpal again. There was a poll in this session where 87% of people have created a feature of or product where they were not sure of the full scale of what the feature or product could do. With the new tech products, which mainly collect and work with data, it takes a long time to figure out the negative side effects. These things sometimes can't be caught in the beta testing phase and are unintentional. What should be done? Withdraw the features or product even though the features or product overall is beneficial to the majority of the people?
Another great question. I think that's on that's something that should be handled on a company by company or product by product basis. I think the key there is governance, though, right? I mean, there are going to be times that we don't realize that something's going to happen. It's how we react to that situation that really makes the difference for companies. So there would be some model of governance in place that if all of a sudden there was a data breach, like, what do we do? The company needs to decide, do we turn it off? Do we roll back the feature? Like, what is that experience? How do we communicate that it happened? It's all of those areas that make a product or a person that uses that product feel safe and builds trust. So we just need to build in the parameters of what could go wrong and spend time really like going through as you're building something. What if this happens? How do we react to it? If, if our data is breached, what do we do? If, our product ends up on the news because it caused harm in some way, like what do we do? And having those fallback plans and that governance model around them really help you understand that there are potential consequences and you may not have hit them yet or seen them yet, but you know how to react when they happen, while at the same time you're continuing to tweak the data and learn from the data to avoid any misuse or any algorithmic flare-ups or anything that could be not going right. And sometimes it's beyond just QA testing, right? It really is spending time with people, watching them use the product, seeing how they are working with it, seeing what inputs they have, and being able to just understand that context is really important.
Okay. One question from Emily. How can you most effectively talk to your coworker or boss about implementing a morally correct design decision when they want to go in a different direction?
Yeah, these questions are great. So, as designers, as product professionals, we have to become comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. And, it's funny because a lot of people would answer this question and say, it might be time to find another job. But the truth is that that doesn't solve the problem. The only way to change companies and change situations is to being deeply involved in them and finding ways to educate the company on what is moral, what is a good design decision, what is a bad design decision. There are times when you can have the conversation, point it out, raise that level of awareness, let them know that you're uncomfortable with it. You might not win. That feature or product might still get launched. At that point, your best bet is to figure out a better way to tell that story, a better way to educate them on your perspective. I mentioned before, as designers, we're really strong at telling stories. What we need to do is turn that story around and explain to the company like why that's a bad decision, what the better decision is. You're not going to win every time, but as we continue to educate people on how important it is to have ethical design, ethical products, and the consequences of having unethical products, I think that you will help open their eyes. But realize this, not all of these decisions come from a bad place. I can't think of many instances other than like phishing scams where people set out and say, you know what, I'm just going to trick people. I'm going to like, my goal is to just hurt people. I don't think we come from that place. So it might just be worth understanding their perception. So a quick story. I worked on a product that I felt was felt like it could have been going unethical early in my career. And one of the things that our stakeholders were talking about is we just want to trick them into doing the right thing. And it's like, you don't trick someone into doing the right thing. You educate them into doing the right thing. So sometimes it's just the way that we use words and helping them say things in a different way that makes all the difference. But if you do find something completely uncomfortable, please like speak up about it. Be comfortable having those conversations no matter what.
A lot of heart in that answer, I must say. One more question for you from Lydia Jennifer. How could a payment app like GPay reduce the payment failure, which is most of the time, especially during times of urgency? How could the product design be improved to avoid payment failure during those times of emergency?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I honestly don't have enough understanding of the context to answer that. So I think what we need to do is understand why there's this payment failure. It's probably a technology overload constraint that happens. We need to understand that more and understand situations. So, when there is an emergency, maybe there's a way to limit the traffic or the bandwidth of the server and take these transactions and store them somewhere and cycle them through at different times so that they're more staggered and not all hitting the server at once. This again, there could be many reasons. It's really understanding why this is happening first, and then figuring out ways to reduce that load and solve the problem in a different way. That's our job. Our job is to figure this type of stuff out, but we need to understand a little bit more of the context to do so.
Okay, we'll just look and wait for maybe any more questions. Audience, please go ahead and ask your questions in the Q&A window or the comment sections on LinkedIn. Okay, I think we're good there, and everybody's asked questions they wanted. So in view of the time constraints, we'll have to end the Q&A here. Thanks for the participation, audience. For any further questions, you can connect with Andy over LinkedIn or other mediums. Thank you for an amazing and soulful session, Andy. That was really, really lovely. Now we come to for the champion of curiosity. That's what we had started off, and we said we're gonna look at which is the best question. So what was the best question that you could pick, that you think you can pick from what was asked?
Oh, all of them were really good. I think that Emily's question about how to effectively talk and have those conversations when things seem to go wrong or feel to go wrong was probably the deepest one. So
right. So that's great. So the winner takes away a digital course of their choice. And Emily, since Andy has picked your question as one of the best for the champion of curiosity, we will get back in touch with you again. Congratulations.
Great question, Emily.
We have enjoyed having you with us, Andy. It has been a complete pleasure. Please accept the certificate of appreciation from the Institute. The QR code on the certificate will take you to a dedicated Hall of Fame page created for you for the recording of this session. Please share it with your network. We will be sharing the webinar recording on our YouTube channel as well. Thank you very much and appreciate your time, taking your time off, throwing more light on the subject. And I wish a few, more product designers had your kind of a soul.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been so much fun and I appreciate you having me.
Lovely. Very nice. We really enjoyed that, and that's throwing a lot of light and a lot of stories which were full of stark facts. Thank you very much. And audience, thank you for joining us. It was great interacting with you all. Do not forget to register for the webinar tomorrow. With that note, I end today's session. Happy learning and stay skilled.